The blank look from the narcissist. Some of you may well have experienced an occasion where the narcissist just gives you a blank look. It very much is similar to the lights are on but nobody's home. What is going on when that happens? Well, you won't experience this blank look from the greater or the ultra, because those types of narcissist have the ability very quickly to select the appropriate response. And if you want to understand more about how that's done, listen to the video, The Imitation Game. The blank look that you receive, where the expression of the narcissist is still, eyes dead, mouth set in a particular straight position, almost looking like a waxwork model. There's no response. You might have said something where you expect the narcissist to offer a supportive comment. You might be in pain and expecting, therefore, an expression of concern and the offer of help. It might be that you're recounting some particularly difficult day at work, and therefore you're looking for a sympathetic and supportive response from the narcissist in terms of words, expression, body language, etc. Instead, all you get is this blank look. What is happening here is that you are seeing the disconnect between the ability of the narcissist to fit in and what is really going on. Non-narcissists operate in varying degrees through emotional empathy. That is part of what, in essence, controls their responses. You feel things. You see a small child fall down, you feel a need to go and help. You automatically would probably say, "Oh dear," and reach out with your arms to scoop up the child and offer comfort as they cry because they've fallen down and bumped their knees. You felt the response before you even thought about what you were doing. You see a dog getting into difficulty in a lake. You run and jump in, not thinking twice before doing so. An emotional response born out of your emotional empathy to go and rescue poor Rover as he starts to sink beneath the water level, unable to swim on this particular occasion. Accordingly, again, that action born out of emotional empathy for the dog, driven by an immediate response that occurs not even thinking about what is going to happen. Non-narcissists have emotional empathy in different degrees and different extents. And those differences are not the purpose of this video, but purely it is mentioned for the purposes of explaining to you that that is what guides and governs and regulates the behavior of those particular individuals. You feel a response before thinking about it. Often this can work against you because you give an emotional response to something rather than a logical one. But that's a discussion for another day. Non-narcissists are guided, controlled, affected, regulated by their emotional empathy. This means that their actions, facial expressions, tone and words used are all occasioned from a position of feeling how the response should be, feeling how they should act, feeling what they should do, rather than sitting and thinking about it. With us, the narcissists, we don't have any emotional empathy whatsoever. We don't have a bit. It isn't tucked away, hidden, squirreled away. It just doesn't exist. And therefore, those of our kind who are able to express concern, administer some modicum of sympathy, demonstrate apparent compassion, all of it, of course, is false. False contrition, false compassion, false humility, false concern for somebody else, offering a shoulder to cry on. That is all being determined by the narcissism as the appropriate response to utilize in that given moment for the purposes of the assertion of control and gathering of fuel over the other appliance that we are interacting with. So, a mid-range type A, seducing a victim who has then suffered a bereavement, because they're in the golden period, he will make the appropriate noises of, "I feel so sorry for your loss. Here, let me give you a hug. Come on, I'm sure everything will be all right." appropriate noises of comfort. The pat expressions are utilised. Gestures, support, help are all given, not because the narcissist feels those things for that appliance, but because the narcissism has learned that those are the appropriate things to do at that point in the dynamic with regard to this type of victim in order to control them in a benign way and draw fuel. It's all about the needs of the narcissist. Lower mid-range, middle mid-range A and B, upper mid-range, lower greater, middle greater, upper greater, and the ultra all have cognitive empathy in varying degrees and in varying degrees of effectiveness. As I have explained previously, you will in some instances see a slight pause before the narcissism selects the appropriate response, as if it's going through a range of options before making a selection. That is the imitation game in full effect. So, where you do receive a response which appears to be one of concern or compassion, comfort, help, support, whatever it is, and it's coming from a known narcissist, understand that is only coming from a position of cognitive, learned, fake empathy, and it is not yet another manipulation being used against you. Where you experience the blank luck, this is because the narcissism doesn't have an answer. There is no cognitive empathy that is applicable. Instead, the narcissism goes to find a response and finds the shelf in the warehouse of the imitation game empty, and thus what you get by response is the blank look. The narcissist doesn't know how to react because the narcissism hasn't provided him with an answer. It isn't able to provide a face that expresses apparent concern. It isn't able to provide the gestures of apparent support. They are not within the portfolio appertaining to this particular narcissist. And instead, you are just met with a blank screen. The robot looking at you, unable to process what it ought to do in this situation. You, of course, when you first experience this, will not be aware of what's going on. You will not be familiar with the fact that this is a narcissist and indeed one that has no emotional or cognitive empathy. And what you're seeing is what is known as the 404 moment, and you can listen to a video about that separately. But when you experience a blank look from the narcissist, this isn't because the narcissist is thinking, I don't know what to do and I'll just stand and stare at her. The narcissist isn't even aware that he doesn't know what to do because his narcissism hasn't picked up on that there is an issue. This is the narcissist that operates with a lack of awareness, that they don't see that there is a response that they ought to do to fit in. This is where, in other instances, this particular narcissist might suddenly start laughing at a funeral because they don't see that their action is inappropriate. The individual who might make a comment that doesn't fit with the surrounds because there is a disconnect, an incongruity between the response of the narcissist and the prevailing conditions. Their narcissism doesn't get it quite right. Moreover, in certain instances, it doesn't get it quite right and isn't able to offer anything at all because it has no answer, because there is nothing there behind the construct, because there is an absence of emotional empathy. At that moment, you get to see the emptiness through the blank look that is sent your way. The blank look is a response of a narcissist unable to provide any response within the instance in order to fit in. It is predicated on the absence of both emotional and cognitive empathy. Neither of those things are there. And as a consequence of this, you are left puzzled as to why he didn't react or why she didn't respond. That he just didn't do anything when you'd sprained your ankle. That you talked about the fact that your mother had died and he just asked you what's for dinner. The fact that you're talking about having had a shitty day at work and she just looked at you as if you weren't there. Those are the reasons behind what happens when you get the blank luck from the narcissist. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.